In this video homework guide, my plan is to cover factoring trinomials where I need to factor out a greatest common factor first. So these questions are very similar to the previous factoring trinomial problems, but we need to look for a greatest common factor. So for the very first question, there's a 2, there's an 8, and there's 6. And from those three numbers, I noticed that I can factor out a 2 from all three of those numbers. So 2 is my greatest common factor. And then I can remove that from the trinomial, and I can remove that from the trinomial by simply dividing every single term by the greatest common factor, which is 2. And that will give me x squared plus 4x plus 3. After that, this inside trinomial right here in yellow, you can factor that by creating a table. So in your table, you would pick the last number, which is 3, and the middle number, which is 4. So you need to find two numbers that multiply to 3, and those two numbers need to add to 4. So 1 and 3 would work because 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 plus 3 is 4. So in order to finish this off, I need two more brackets, and then I pick my numbers 1 and 3. So this would be x plus 1 and x plus 3. And that would be my final answer. I'm now moving on to the second question, and in the second question I noticed that there's a 5, a 15, and a 20, and from those three numbers there is a number that we can factor out from all three of those numbers, and that number is 5. So from the 5, the 15, and the 20, 5 is the biggest number that I can remove, and when I pull that out, I'm basically factoring out the greatest common factor. So all I need to do now is I need to divide each single term by 5. And if I do that, I would get x squared. 15 divided by 5 is 3, so plus 3x. And 20 divided by 5 is going to be 4, so that would be minus 4 inside the bracket. Alright, so if I take a look at this yellow expression right here, which is a trinomial, I can factor that by creating a table. So on my table, I need my last number, which is negative 4, and my middle number, which is positive 3. And I need two numbers that multiply to negative 4, and those two numbers need to combine to positive 3. So the numbers that I'm thinking are 4 and negative 1. So 4 times negative 1 is negative 4, and 4 minus 1 is 3. Okay, so in order to finish off the factoring, the 5 would remain, and then we can create two more brackets, and inside the brackets I want to use these numbers, 4 and minus 1, so x plus 4 and x minus 1, and that would complete the factoring. Moving on to question C, if I take a look at the numbers here, the coefficients, here's a 3, a 12, and a 36. The biggest number that divides all three of those numbers at the same time is the number 3. So 3 is your greatest common factor, and I'm going to pull that out from the trinomial. And if I do that, I need to divide every single term by 3, which is the GCF. So 3 divided by 3 gives you just the y squared. 12 divided by 3 is 4, so negative 4y. And 36 divided by 3 is going to be 12, so minus 12. After that, I can set the table here because I can now factor the inside trinomial. So on my table, I will put negative 12 on the outside, and the middle number here is negative 4. So I need two numbers that multiply to negative 12 and combine to negative 4. And those numbers are negative 6 and positive 2. So negative 6 times positive 2 is negative 12, and negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. Alright, so my GCF would remain, and then I can break up the trinomial into two extra brackets, and then I will use the numbers in my table. So this would be y minus 6 and y plus 2 as my final answer. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which is letter D. For letter D, I will look at the 5, the 40, and the 80, and I notice that the biggest number that I can factor out from all three of those numbers at the same time is the number 5, and that's my GCF. So if I factor that out from my trinomial, I can do that by dividing every single term by 5, which is the GCF again. 5 divided by 5 gives you just the b squared. 40 divided by 5 is 8, so minus 8b. And 80 divided by 5 would give you 16, so I need a plus 16 there. And just like all the other problems, the remaining or the new trinomial inside the brackets, that can be factored by creating a table. And I need to look at my last number here, which is 16, and my middle number here, which is -8. All right, so the two numbers that multiply to 16 and combine to -8 are -4 and -4. All right, so -4 times -4 is 16, and -4 minus 4 gives you the -8. Okay, in order to finish off, the GCF remains, and then I need two more brackets here, and the numbers that I'll be using inside the brackets are -4 and -4, so b minus 4 and b minus 4, and that would finish off that problem. All right, so for the next one, there's a 2, and 112, so usually the first number is the number that you factor out, so that's my GCF, which is 2, and I will create another bracket there, and I divide each term by the GCF, which is 2. Well, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so m squared. 2 divided by 2 gives you 1, so plus m. And 112 divided by 2 is 56, so this will be negative 56 here. Okay, let's take a look at the table one more time, because I can factor the inside trinomial. The numbers that I want are -56 and +1. All right, and the two numbers that come to my mind are +8 and -7. So +8 times -7 is -56, and 8 minus 7 is 1. Okay, and then we can set up another two brackets here. And then this would be m plus 8 and m minus 7. And that would complete the factoring for that problem. Okay, so the last question in this particular section is letter F, and for letter F there's a 9, a 54, and a 45, and 9 would be the biggest number that I can factor out from those three yellow numbers, so I can factor out the 9 from the trinomial, and that means once again we're going to divide every single term by 9, which is the GCF. 9 divided by 9 is 1, so this is x squared. 54 divided by 9 is going to be 6, so this would be plus 6x, and 45 divided by 9 is going to be 5, so plus 5. And once again, my trinomial can be factored. So the two numbers that I need are 5 and 6. So that would be the two numbers that multiply to 5. I would say 1 and 5, and 1 plus 5 also gives you 6, so that combination definitely works. This will be x plus 1 and x plus 5 to finish. So those numbers there are here and there. Great. All right, let's move on to the next section. Okay, for question number 9, I will continue to factor trinomials, but for these problems, I need to factor out the negative sign first. Okay, so let's take a look at a few of these problems here. I'll notice that there's a minus sign at the very beginning. So if there's a minus sign at the front of your trinomial, go ahead and factor it out by pulling out a minus sign at the front. Now, if you're pulling out a minus sign at the front, you're essentially dividing every single term by -1. And just ask yourself, what is this negative sign divided by that negative sign? Well, two negatives gives you a positive, so this will be x squared. And then positive 6 divided by -1 is going to be -6, so this would be -6x. And -9 divided by -1 is +9. All right, so that's what happens when you factor out the negative sign. Essentially, every single term inside this bracket, which is highlighted in blue, the signs all change. So you'll notice that this positive sign becomes a negative, this negative sign becomes a positive, and this negative right here becomes a positive. So that's what happens when you factor out a negative sign. All the signs change to the opposite sign. Okay, and that's a very important skill that we'll be practicing throughout this course. Okay, now that if I look at the blue expression there, the trinomial in the blue, we need to factor that by creating a table. And I need two numbers that multiply to 9, and those two numbers need to combine to -6. So the two numbers that multiply to 9 and give me -6 are -3 and -3. So -3 times -3 is +9, and -3 minus 3 gives you -6. So minus sign in front, and then I need two more brackets, and the numbers that I'll be using now are -3 and -3. So x minus 3, x minus 3. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, once again, there's a minus sign here, so I need to factor out that minus sign, and then I would create a bracket here. And essentially, you are dividing every single term by, negatives, a negative number, so that would be -1. That would be the easiest way to kind of divide or factor out the greatest common factor here. So ask yourself, I have two negative signs, so if I have two negative signs right here, then what's left is positive, so positive x squared. 7 divided by -1 is -7x, and 44 divided by -1 is -44. Alright, so once again, you'll notice that the signs, the positive, they change to the opposite signs, which is negative, and this negative here is positive to start off the bracket, and that's because we're pulling out the minus sign at the front. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and now factor this trinomial inside there, and for that I need to set the table again, and in my table I need -44 and -7. Okay, so the two numbers that come to my mind are 4 and -11. That definitely gives me -44 when I multiply the numbers, and 4 minus 11 gives me -7. So my final answer would be negative, and then the two brackets, x plus 4 and x minus 11, and that would be my final answer for that one. Okay, for letter C here, I see a minus sign, so let's pull that out, and because I've done a few of these now, I know all these signs will just change to its opposite, so this would be positive y squared, positive 6y, and -27, and that's how I would factor out the negative sign there. And then look at the inside trinomial, and let's go ahead and find two numbers that multiply to -27, which is 9. Sorry, I need -27 there and a positive 6 for my middle number. So the numbers that I'm thinking are 9 and -3. So 9 times -3 gives me -27, and 9 minus 3 gives me 6. So my final answer would be y plus 9 and y minus 3. That's my final answer there. Okay, let's go on. A few more to go here. For the next one here, there's a -3. So for this particular problem, we need to factor out the -3. So that -3 is my GCF, and I'll divide every single term by -3. And if I do that, I'm left with x squared. That gives me a -2x, and this gives me a -6. And for this particular problem, that would be my final answer, because I can't find two numbers that multiply to -6, and those two numbers would combine to -2. It's impossible to find a combination that works. You can try to set up a table here, but every single combination that gives you the -6 doesn't give you the -2. So this would give me -5, this would give me +5. Other combinations that could work are 3 and -2, which is 1, and -3 and +2, which gives you -1. So there's no combination there that'll give you the -2. So this right here in blue is my final answer. And for letter E, there's a -5, a 25, and a -20. So I can pull out the leading coefficient here, which is -5. That's my GCF. And that means I can divide every single term by -5. If I do that, I get x squared at the front. 25 divided by -5 is -5x, and -20 divided by -5 is +4. Alright, let's take a look at this inside trinomial here, and once again we can set up a table. We need two numbers that multiply to 4, and those two numbers need to combine to -5. So the numbers that I'm thinking of are -4 and -1. So -4 times -1 is +4, and -4 minus 1 gives you the -5. Alright, so in order to finish this off, I need two brackets again, x minus 4 and x minus 1. Okay, that concludes this video homework guide on factoring trinomials, where you need to factor out a greatest common factor first. Whether that be a number or a negative number, you need to pull that out first before you get to the table method. All right, thank you.